Hello guys, welcome to today's session, and in this session we'll be walking through how to actually transfer money from one wallet to another. I want you to recall that we can have more than one wallet in the system. That is, a user can have more than one wallet. So imagine you have a certain amount of money inside your bank wallet, and you want to transfer, and maybe you've made a withdrawal and you want to actually and you've actually withdrawn, so you want to transfer that money that you've withdrawn into your bank wallet. So that's basically the purpose of this transfer. So that is what we'll be treating today. So to start with, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a transfer I'm going to create a transfer service, and I'm going to call it transfer. So our transfer service will be like every other service that we've been creating in the system. So what I'm just going to do for this, I'm going to copy all of this and I'm going to paste it right here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to call this category transfer, and I'm going to call this transfer. You will know why I'm doing that pretty soon. So this will be transfer, as I said, transfer service, and this will be transfer service, and this will be new transfer service, and this return a new transfer service. Yes. So now that we've done that, the next thing we want to do is we want to create a category that we can actually use to identify transactions that are type of transfer. So to do that, what we need to do is we need to go back to our seeder, category seeder, and add an extra category here called transfer. So it is this category that we are going to be using as the categorization of our transaction. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run that command, and to run that command based on how we've actually done our makefile, all I need to run is run this particular command right here, and I'm going to go to the terminal and run that command. So okay, we need to go into the folder, pwd cd. All right, so now I'm going to run that command. Okay, so we are running the seeder. Okay, good. So if we check our database now and check for categories, let's see if we have transfer. So you can see that we have transfer now, and yeah. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to so now that we've created that, next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to the transfer service, and I'm going to create the method for performing transfers. So this method, what I'm going to do is this method will be function, and it should be the receiver will be the transfer. So I'm just going to let me call it TR, and this will be transfer service, and a pointer as usual. The name of the method will be transfer. So this will be expecting a this will be expecting a source wallet, which will be our models.wallet, and it's a destination wallet. So let me just bring this down to another line so that it will be easier for us to deal with. So basically, our source wallet is where we want to move money from, And our destination wallet is where we are sending the money into. So I will make this be a pointer as usual. And the next thing I want to make sure is I want to check that the amount is type of flow 64. So, and this amount is basically the amount of money we actually want to transfer from the source wallet to the destination wallet. So, the next thing I'm going to do is we need to first of all retrieve the type of category, because this will be a transaction as well, and we need to retrieve the category for this type of transaction. So I'm going to do say category comma error equals to, now so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to initiate the category service right here. Category service, category service, new category service, and we are going to pass in that DB instance. Our category service will now be category service dot find by slug. Now, then our find by slug will be expecting the slug we want to find by, which is what I have created here called transfer, and I also want to pass a false. So the reason why I'm passing a false is, if you notice in our categories, our column, we have the slug and we have the is custom. So I'm retrieving the category via the slug name, and I'm also passing if it is a custom. So this will be useful for us if in the future we actually want to find categories that are of type custom type, right? So let me go back in there, and I'm going to create this method. So as you can see, so this will be the slug and this will be is custom. So this will be a type of category model, and this will be an error. So in order to do this, all we need to do is query our category model table to retrieve a category that falls within that falls within what we actually need. So the first thing is var, create a variable category model. Then we need to be sure that the string being passed is actually slugged. So let's convert it the way we do our slug right here. So I'm just going to copy that and I'm going to paste it right here. I don't want to create another method. You can create a method to call slugify or something, but since we are not using it in so many places, so I'm just going to leave it like that. So slug, and this will just be equals to the slug, and we are going to replace like so. Once we do that, we want to actually query the database. So we want to say the DB where the slug name is equals to slug and is custom is actually equals to false, is custom, or based on whatever was actually passed, right? I don't know why this is still okay. Is custom. Okay. So the next thing you want to do is you want to check if the error is not nil. So if the error is not nil, we want to actually return the error, but otherwise we want to return the category and nil, right? So now we are going to go back to our transfer service. Now we are getting our category. So we want to check if the error is nil. If the error is not nil, then we want to return the error, right? Or we can say, yeah, let's just return the error for now. So the next thing I want to do is I want to create a title for this particular type of transaction. So I'll call it account transfer. Then we need to create the data that is needed for us to actually create a transaction for transfers. So we know that in order to do that, we need two data. We need the source transaction data and we need the destination transaction data. So source transaction data, source transaction data will be equals to, because if we look at our transaction service, right, we see that we are expecting this type of transaction. So this is what we are actually trying to create right now. So that will be equals to requests dot store transaction data, and we are going to fill all the fields. Now for this, the category will be category dot id. The wallet id, since this is source, that will be source wallet dot id, and the amount will be the amount passed, right? The amount that is being transferred. Then the date will just be time dot now dot formats. So that will be date only, because remember this is of type string, so that's why I'm formatting it to type string. Then the description will be, we will set the description as the same thing as the title. Now the reason why I am passing this as a pointer is because if you inspect this, you can see that it is expecting a pointer to a string. So the same thing goes for the title, right? And for the type, since we are removing money from the source data, so it will be an expense, right? And parents ID will be nil. We don't need parents ID. So we need to do the same thing for destination data. Destination transaction data. Now, our destination transaction data will now be destination wallet.id. The category will remain the same. The date, time, and everything will remain the same, except for the type will now be of type income, right? Now, once we've done that, the next thing we want to do is we want to actually initialize the transaction. So that will be error, and that will be transfer.db.transaction, right? And we want to return nil if everything goes well. Now, the first thing we want to do is we want to decrement the source wallet, right? Since we are transferring from source to destination. So what we are going to do is we need the service, we need the wallet service now. So we need to actually initiate that. So what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to initiate the wallet service right here. So wallet service equals to the wallet service. So the reason why I'm initiating the wallet service inside this transaction is so that it will have access to the transaction query, so that it will be wrapped. The DB that will be using it to query our wallets, to decrement and all that, will be within the transaction. So now all I need to do is wallet service dot decrement wallet balance, and this will be expecting the source. It is expecting a transaction. So since this decrement wallet balance is actually expecting a transaction, it's expecting a DB instance, so we can decide not to actually initiate this wallet service right here. So I'm just going to move it out, and I'm going to move it closer to this session, and I'm going to call it tr.db. So our wallet service decrement wallet balance will accept the current transaction, because if you look at it, we are using the transaction instance of the DB that is actually passed. So once we do that, the next thing we need to pass is the wallet, so which is the source wallet, and the amount that we actually want to decrement by. Right? Then once that is fine, we want to check if the error is nil. So this is complaining decrement wallets. Oh, okay, this should be of type error. Actually, it should be of type error. So this is only sending one value, so this should be error. So if the error is nil, if the error is not nil, we want to return the error, right? Otherwise, we are good. So the next thing I want to do is I want to do for the increments as well. So for the increment, so what I'm going to do is once I do decrement, I want to actually go ahead to create a transaction against it as well. So for this will be error, and we need the transaction service to actually implement this. So for this, I'll be initializing the transaction service inside this. So if you look at our transaction service, we can see that our transaction service is not expecting any DB instance. So that means we need to initialize the DB instance inside our transaction code block. Now, so for that, I'm going to say transaction service equals to the TX, right? So that will be equals to transaction service dot create. Now that will be the source transaction data, right? And so this is expecting a pointer, so we have to pass it like this. Then is expecting the user ID, that is the user. So the user ID will basically be the owner of the wallet. So source wallet dot ID, or we could even do one better by accepting the user ID right here, user ID, and just pass it in. Right? So create expects the just expect the transaction, the user ID, and if it is reversal. So this should be user ID. Let's see what else. So the user ID, if it is reversal, and the date, formatted date. Okay. So what we are going to do is if it is reversal, is false. So in order to pass the transaction date that is actually required for creating a transaction service, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say transaction source transaction data dot the date. So since the date needs formatting, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say formatted da, da, da. So let me just create a variable formatted date equals to So we have a method in our transaction service called formatted date, right here. This is what we need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back here in the transaction service. We have it on the transaction service, and I'm going to say transaction service dot format dates. That will be source transaction data dot dates, like so. So this way either be an error. Okay, good. So this could be an error, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm probably, let me see. Okay, the date, then the error. Okay, so I'm going to ignore the error right here. Since I'm certain that we are the one generating the date, so we should be fine. So then all we need to do now is pass the formatted dates right here. Okay, so we are good now. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, the next thing is we will need to implement the creation of transaction for when it is of type, when we are performing increments on the destination wallet. So because we are sending money into the destination wallet, this will be increment wallet balance, and this will be destination wallet and the amount that we want to deposit in. And this will be the destination transaction data, and like so. So if any error occurs, we want to return the error. Otherwise, we are returning nil. Okay. Now that we've done that, the next thing we want to check here is if there is any error. If error is not nil, we want to return the error. Otherwise, we return nil, since so this error is what we are checking, right? I'm not sure why it is still being highlighted. No new variable. Okay, because we've already used an error. We've already initialized our error here, so that's why we don't need to do that. So now that we've done that, the next thing we need to do is we need to create an handler for transfer. So I'm just going to call it transfer handler. And like every other handler that we've been creating, they will have their own method as well. So I'm just going to create a method, and I'm going to call this transfer. That's simple. Transfer. Right. Now that we've created the transfer method, next thing I'm going to go now is I'm going to go to the route, and I'm going to create a method for transfer basically. So for this, I'm not going to be creating a group. I'm just going to be creating a simple route. So that will be API group. Oh, sorry. Let me just say API app dot. Let me see. How do we do that? Okay. So in order to create the route, for transfer, all I need to do is API group dot post method, and that will be slash transfer, and the handler will be of transfer, of course, and we are going to pass in the middleware to make sure that the user is actually authenticated. App.authentication middleware. And now let's go back to the transfer handler. So for now, I'm just going to return age.send, or common dot send success response. Let me say transfer the context, and let me say transfer successful. That should be a string. Transfer successful. Yeah. Not enough arguments. Let me see. Okay, then the data. So for this, the data we'll be sending will be nil. So as we have been doing, the first thing we need to do is actually to create a transfer request as usual. Transfer requests. And the transfer request will basically contain 3 parameters. So construct, transfer requests. So this will contain 3 parameters, basically the source wallet ID will be of type unsigned integer, and the source will be solid. So this will be, and the JSON serialization will be source wallet ID, while the validation will be required, and it supposed to be of type number, because we know that we are expecting an integer. And the destination wallet ID as well, required must be a number, and the amount, and this will be of type float. 64 required, but this will be numeric because it can be in float format. This has to be in capital letter. Okay, now that we've done that, the next thing we need to do is let me just quickly copy all of these as usual, then come to our transfer handler, and this will be transfer request. We bind it, we do our validation as we've always done, and we're good. So the next thing we want to do is we want to retrieve our source wallet. So for this, I need to initialize my wallet service. New wallet service, and that will be the h.db instance, and wallet service will be read or find by ID, and that will be the payload dot source wallet ID, and the user that actually owns the wallet, that will be user dot ID. Now we want to check if error is nil, is not nil. So what I'm going to do is, if the error is not nil, what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to send a bad request, and I'm going to set a message stating that invalid source wallets, right? So I'm going to do the same for destination wallets. Destination wallets, and that will be destination wallet ID, the same thing, the user ID. So this will be invalid destination wallets. Destination wallets, I can just call it wallet ID, or let me add this to as well, ID. Now, if we are sure that our source wallet and our destination wallets are actually valid, that is, they are in the database, the next thing we need to check is if the transfer request or payload, if the payload dot amount is greater than or equals to, if it is greater than or equals to the source wallet dot balance. So if it is greater than or equals to, the next thing we want to do is we want to return insufficient fund. So what we are going to do here is we insufficient funds, just to let the user know that the none of they do not. Okay, so from this, our source wallet is float. Let me see. Our wallet is float 64, while our payload amount is float 32. Really? So this should be float 64. Sorry. That's corrected. Now, if all goes well, all we need to do now is call our transfer service dot transfer. But before we do that, we actually need to actually initiate the transfer service. So what I'm going to do right here is where I'm just going to initiate the transfer service, and that will be new transfer service, like so. Transfer service. So our transfer service dot transfer is expecting a source wallet, a destination wallet, the amount, and the user ID. User.id, right? And if any error occurs, all I'm going to be sending is an internal server error, return dot common dot send internal server error response. So an error transferring from wallets, basically. So we can just tell them try again later, right? Okay. Now that we've done that, the next thing we need to do is this will be service transfer service. So I just need to replace this transfer service. So once we've done that, the next thing we need to do is we need to add to our Postman and try to perform a transfer. API slash transfer, and it will be a post method. I've already initialized the source wallet ID and the destination wallet ID. So let me test with that first of all. Okay, we need to actually start our server. Sorry. So we are going to say PA make, oh sorry, make run dev. Okay, now our server is started. It's the API. So we can see we are getting, okay, since our token has expired. So I'm going to log in. Yeah. So now that we are logged in, let's try to perform a transfer. So we can see that we are getting invalid source wallet ID. So let's try to see the wallets that are available, or let's even try to get the wallets that are available for this particular user. So list wallets. Yeah, so we have wallet 7 and 6. So we can see that the process of us retrieving the wallet is actually working. So if we say 6, let's say 7, let's say 7 is our source wallet and hit. So you can see our destination wallet ID is invalid. So we can see as at before performing this transfer, currently this account 500,000 as balance and this has 524,000. So I'm going to be transferring 24,000 from wallet ID of 6 to wallet ID of 7. So let's go to our transfer. So our source wallet will be 6 and our destination wallet will be 7. So to test, let me try to send an amount that is more than what is in both wallets, right? Let's hit the API. So we can see we are getting insufficient funds. So let's try to send what we have, 24,000, and hit the NPI. So we can see our transfer was actually successful. And if we list the wallet now, we can see that wallet 7 has 50,000 now. So we should have 52,000 or 524,000 by the time we hit the API now. So we can see, and this has also reduced. So if I go ahead to do another transfer again, you can transfer is successful. If I view the list of wallets, so we can see it is actually incrementing. So that means our transfer API is actually working. If I refresh and check the transactions, we can see that the account transfer description is present, the number of transfer we've done, the user that performed it, the category, the wallet ID. So you can see 6 and 7, 6 and 7, and it is being recorded as required. So the one thing that I've noticed is our title is actually not being saved. And the reason why that is the case is simply because, so let's check our transaction service and let's check title. We are not even passing title in our model, right? So we need to actually rectify that. So title, that will be payload dot title. Yes. So let's try to refresh our application. Yeah. So let's hit the API again. Let's try to make a transfer. Good. And let's see our list of wallets as this increase. So you can see that this is actually increasing. If we go back to our database and view our transactions, so we can see that our title is now being filled. So we've actually resolved that bug. So make sure you actually resolve that in your code as well. So that will be the end of this session, and I'm happy that we've actually seen this through, and I hope to see you in the next session as we move forward with the development of our budget app API. See you next time.